So for some reason, Restream here decided to get rid of the bottom video layer of our video screen and make it from the side. So our presentation is a lot smaller now than it used to be. So thank you for that. The reason that I really need to
Say, it could just be me, but you sound pretty quiet, Vandalia.
probably not you. I'm talking loudly.
Yeah, you sound quiet and echoey. But while you're getting that figured out, hello there, everybody. Today we have a slightly different episode than we have previously. For most of the past few episodes, we've been talking about dinosaurs, but now we're going to take a look at the other two main branches of Archosauria, so the ruling reptiles. There's a lot of really weird and wacky creatures along both of the lines we'll be following today, so I hope you're excited.
Am I still echoey or silent?
Much better. You sound much better.
I put the microphone right in front of my face. Yep. Today we are talking about not two groups. One, the closest living relative to dinosaurs, and next a closer but extinct group of related dinosaurs.
Not counting birds, yes. Crocodilians.
Birds are dinosaurs, and that can't really be close to dinosaurs.
I mean, they can be close to other dinosaurs.
True.
Well, at any rate, yes. Today we're going to be talking about the often forgotten branches of the Archosaur family tree. That being the crocodilomorphs, or pseudosuchians, and the pterosaurs. We're going to go over the places they sort of originate and how they change going through the first couple periods of the Age of Reptiles. When reptiles ruled the land, sea, and sky.
Yep.
Also, new to this stream, at least on my channel, if anyone wants to send super chats, feel free. We'll try to answer any dinosaur questions, but if the chat picks up, we might miss you.
Yeah.
So if you want to be sure we'll answer, make sure you send in a super chat.
Congrats on super chats. If you want to, on my channel, all I have is restream questions. So either or.
Either works. Again, we'll try to get as many as possible, but sometimes the chat moves a bit fast.
Yep. If I want to be our producer, we'll hire you. Maybe not, probably not hire it.
I can't afford that.
Intern you.
Well, at least for now, should we get started talking about the weird archosaurs?
Yes.
And as we've discovered with this new update, I can switch the slides. Technology is terrifying. So, bit of an overview here. For most of the previous clades, we've been going through them step by step, from the most basal or earliest branching to the latest branching members. And there's been a steady progression through time. It's a bit harder to do that for these groups, in part because their phylogenies are complex, and in part because I don't research them. I am a dinosaur researcher, even if I am just stepping into that field. So instead of a super structured phylogeny, we're just going to go through some really interesting representatives that I think highlight the weird paths that both of these lineages went on during the Age of Reptiles.
Yeah, so wait. First of all, two things. One, are you saying you don't know everything about these a branch of animals you haven't studied?
Oh, I do not, and I am speaking outside of my field.
And two, a little history lesson. Around this is around the time of the end Permian, beginning Triassic, right?
We're going to be starting in the mid-Triassic, so about
Okay.
230, 240 million years.
So at this point, the the synapsid therapsid line it has no longer control of the Earth, and these guys are taking over for a few million years until the KG thing.
Well, but if by a few million years you mean 3 times the length of the age of mammals, then yes. The pretty soon after the end Permian mass extinction, reptiles just exploded. They have a lot of advantages compared to mammals, mostly a lower requirement for calories, at least at first. Some reptile lineages do speed up their metabolism, but for the majority, it's pretty slow and they can adapt to changing situations. Also, super quick. Thank you, Robin Webster, who says she doesn't know enough for a question. Well, still much appreciated, Robin. And if you do think of one, just at me. But what was I saying? Yes, anyway, I don't know everything, and I'm happy to admit that. If I knew everything, then life would be pretty boring. So if there's anyone who knows a bit more about these guys in the chat, please do feel free to correct me. With that said, we can take a look at the Archosauria. Now, this diagram is a little complex, but I'm going to walk you all through it. So starting at the bottom, we have Archosauriforms. These are a group of reptiles that are different from all other reptiles in a few certain ways.
Real fast, if you have trouble following these slideshow, the link to the slideshow is in the description, at least of my video. I don't know if Doc put in the description of his video yet.
It is not in there. I will edit and put that in.
If it wants to follow through it later on or can't see the screen very well because its size, feel free to.
Anyway, archosaurs are different from a lot of other reptiles. On the whole, they have a much more upright stance, with their legs at least partially beneath the body. Whereas if you think about like most lizards, their legs are spreading all out to the side. Or if you're like a snake, you don't have legs at all. There are differences in the way the head is structured. In particular, a lot of archosaurs have more solid skulls than other reptiles. It's like a snake can extend its jaws to gulp down lots of food. A lot of other reptiles can do that to a similar degree, but it's rarer in archosaurs. A few groups can do it, but it's relatively rare. They also have a more advanced respiratory system. A lot of archosaurs have air sacs that flow into and out of the bones in their body. It's much more efficient than most other groups, and it means that they can be active for a lot longer. It's part of why birds can fly hundreds of miles and at really high altitudes.
So do both sides have the hollow bones or just the pterosaur dinosaur side?
So that's kind of a difficult question.
All right.
So pterosaurs and dinosaurs definitely have them. The crocodilian or pseudotsuchian line have a reduced version of the same system, at least in modern animals. But it's a bit harder to tell from the bones unless you have like a beautifully preserved specimen, which we do have for some dinosaurs. All modern pseudotsuchians, I don't think they have hollow bones, but they're also all semi-aquatic. So you don't want hollow bones if you want to be able to sink in the water. Anyway, within Archosauria, then, going up from Archosauriforms, you usually have a lot of parental care, like they'll invest tons of energy into raising their young. They usually have higher metabolism than most reptiles. and a bunch of other characteristics. Now, for the first part of this presentation, we're going to go down the left branch of this phylogenetic tree. We're going to go down the Pseudoseuchia, starting with something that isn't quite a Suchian at all. So, a quick reminder here that modern crocodiles are actually really weird. They're the last remaining members of an extremely diverse group. They were the kings of the Triassic, both in the water and on land. But they were hit pretty hard during the Triassic-Jurassic mass extinction. After that, they kind of gave way to the dinosaurs for a long time, picked back up a little bit during the start of the Cenozoic after the dinosaurs were extinct. But now, they're not the apex predators on land anymore, but they are still pretty deadly if you go near the water. And they're still alive and hungry on at least, 5 out of, is it 5 out of 7? Yeah, 5 out of 7 of the modern continents. I don't think there are any native European crocodilians, at least today.
Or native Antarctican?
Yeah, none in Antarctica.
At least currently, there might have been some before it turned cold.
Oh, there definitely were during the Jurassic. But yeah, there used to be walking crocodiles, jumping crocodiles. There used to be tree climbers. Like, this group was super diverse. And we'll still see them pop up throughout the Mesozoic. We've got some really cute herbivorous crocodiles down the line, or crocodilians down the line. One of which is one of my favorite extinct animals ever, and I wish I could have it as a pet. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. I don't know much if that is true or not still, but I remember old videos and stuff about how even crocodiles or whatever they were, I don't know they're true crocodiles by this point, but they even ambushed dinosaurs on the river banks. It's in the old videos.
I'm pretty sure as long as crocodilians have been around, there have been at least some semi-aquatic members. Okay. Real quick before we continue, I brought up the cute, adorable thing, and I kind of want to show it.
All right.
If I can.
Wait 1 second.
So this is Semasuchus, and it is the most adorable little thing I have ever seen. It is so cute. I love it. Oh, they're adorable. That's it. I just wanted to show that. Sydney Raptor, how do I spell paleontology? Like paleontology. We are clear to have the presentation back up. Oh, and Eddie McCoy, a little reptile featured in their Walking with Dinosaurs DVD set. I'm guessing you're talking about the little guy at the bottom left called Euparkeria. That was highlighted at the very end of the documentary as the ancestor to the dinosaurs, which, yes and no. It's not entirely accurate, but it's not far off the mark. Anywho, let's get into our first crocodilomorph of the evening. Oh, well, I guess first, sorry, this is a quick overview of the crocodilomorphs. Like I said, we're not going to be near as structured as we have been. I'm just going to be highlighting some of the more interesting body plans that appeared during the first few periods of Earth's history, or first few periods of the Age of Reptiles.
It looks like one of them became on the like right the third or fourth one, like some became a back to the sea one. I see some fins there.
Oh, we'll get into that soon. Don't you worry. First off, so our crocodilians are not the first crocodilians, or at least crocodilian-shaped
Yeah,
creatures.
if you remember from the chart a few episodes ago, a few pages ago, there were a lot of side branches before we even got the crocodilomorphs.
Yes, there were quite a few. There's a lot of really weird early archosaurs. These, what you're seeing here, is a phytosaur. Specifically, this is called Redondosaurus. So phytosaurs were an early branch of the archosaur family tree. And they slipped right into the niche that crocodilians would later occupy. And the crazy thing is, they're not the first. This body type and style of hunting, basically just ambush predators, shallow water ambush predators, that body plan and that environmental niche has evolved over and over and over and over again.
Yeah,
Basically, every group of animals has had at least one representative fill this niche at some point in time.
yeah. I think if I remember correctly, in the Permian, there were these versions of this as amphibians.
Yes, and then later, Dimetrodon apparently lived kind of like these, which is surprising with that sail. But there have been mammals. The whale ancestor Ambulocetus is thought to have hunted just like a crocodile. Amphibians, like you said, Vendalia. Proto-mammals, like Dimetrodon. And even one of the earliest representatives is one of the earliest vertebrates that could have crawled onto land, Tiktaalik, probably lived just like this too, which is kind of crazy. So this body plan and this hunting style has been around for over 300 million years.
If it works, don't fix it.
Exactly. Like everything needs to drink, so just wait where they need to drink. And the phytosaurs here, they got big really quick. Like they start out as little guys, like basically all archosaurs do. But by the time they went extinct, there were some phytosaurs that might have reached 40 feet long. Just massive, massive animals. And in this upper picture, you can see one taking down a dinosaur called a Eucoelophysis. And at the bottom, you can see a skeletal mount of one taking on a Placarius, which is a type of mammal relative that was about the size of a large cow. So just to give you a sense of scale here. They were... Meanwhile, the actual crocodilians were a bit smaller during that time. So, Vendalia,
Yes.
what would you call a terrestrial crocodile if you found it?
Well, it depends if it's this size or if it's a little bit bigger.
Well, would you ever consider just calling it the terrestrial crocodile?
I call whatever it wants, let me alone.
Well, this is Terrestrisuchus. It is a very small crocodilomorph. The adults probably would have been about 3 feet long, like 2 to 3 feet long, so really small. And it's interesting because it's not really built for ambush, or it's not built to be an ambush predator. This thing is built for running.
Yeah, I saw some later on that had hoofs and stuff.
Well, we'll get to those later. But for now, like, this little guy would have been a super good runner. So at 3 feet long, it would have been about the size of, think like a terrier, maybe. Like a terrier with a long tail. and it would just dashed around the forest floor, just snatching up whatever it could find.
Yeah,
And
I'm
its
guessing
feet are you
these versions of the crocodiles or whatever branch they're come off of, uh, they had too much competition to survive to the last to present day.
well, not quite, because we have terrestrial crocodiles going all the way through the Mesozoic. They never fully went away until actually pretty recently. Um, I, they're, they're not directly related, but there are some terrestrial crocodiles that evolved in the late Cretaceous and made it to, I think, about 15 million years ago. So they actually survived for a very long time. But at any rate, most crocodilians are plantigrade. That means when they walk around, they walk on the flats of their hands and feet, kind of like humans do. You walk on the flat of your feet. Terrestrisuchus here didn't quite do that. It did the dinosaur thing and lifted its feet up onto its toes. That is, it kind of artificially lengthens your legs and it makes it easier to run fast. And just because of how its body weight was distributed, it might have been able to run on two legs for short periods of time. So if you saw this thing running around in the early Triassic, you might just think you're looking at a dinosaur. And what would confuse you even more is that this thing might have had feathers.
Hmm.
Now that sounds kind of crazy. So let me explain a bit. We have feathers in dinosaurs, not just birds, but in all kinds of dinosaurs, even plant-eating dinosaurs. Even plant-eating dinosaurs. We have what are basically feathers on pterosaurs as well. So their common ancestor probably had feathers, and that's not too far removed from crocodilians.
So you think maybe archosaurs might have a basic feather plan, or at least proto feathers?
At least ancestrally, it's pretty likely. And what makes it even more likely is that if you switch one gene in a modern alligator genome, you'll cause them to grow feathers instead of their scoop-like scales. Just one gene. You just turn it off and they grow feathers. So it seems that our modern crocodilians have lost those feathers, but their ancestors probably had them, especially if they were running around on land as active predators, like this guy, which I think is pretty dang cool.
I wonder if we tried doing that, activate the gene genome, if the descendants would keep them, or if natural selection and sexual selection would make the feathers go away if you brought them back.
That depends. With their modern lifestyle, they're probably better off not having feathers because feathers get wet really easily and it can really mess with your body temperature. They also cause a lot of drag in the water unless you have special oils like penguins or ducks do to help keep them smooth.
So definitely not natural selection then. Maybe sexual selection, but we would have to see. We would have to do it and find out, see if the feathers were mates.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the embryos we've done that to, just due to laws, can't be allowed to, be born and grow to maturity. But hypothetically, we could have feathery crocodiles in the future. Hypothetically. But what if we go a bit bigger? Because while there were tiny crocodilians running around, that's not all there were. Over here on the right, is a crocodilomorph called Deinamasuchus, or the powerful crocodile. It was about the size of a large dog, like a Rottweiler, or a what's a big fighting dog? All I can think is Rottweiler.
Yeah.
And maybe like a Mastiff or something. But regardless, they were fairly big. Like they were about 10 feet long, probably weighed at least 100 pounds, maybe 200. And they had a really nasty bite. Like they had massive teeth and jaw muscles that were pretty similar to modern crocodilians. So they could just chomp. Apparently, there is some discussion as to whether or not it was more of a carnivore or a scavenger, but either way, I wouldn't want to get bit by this thing. It could probably bite right through your leg.
So was this an ambush predator too, or were they still on land?
Still on land.
Everybody says land croc. Right there is the title. It says land croc.
Yes. Yes, Deinamasuchus was terrestrial as well. Like I said, there were a lot of these. I'm just going to be showing a few examples, but they were everywhere. They took on every shape and size. Such as herbivorous crocodilomorphs. So this right here is Stagonolepis. It is an herbivorous crocodilian. It's part of a group called the Adosaurs, which as a whole were pretty well armored. And in particular, this guy had a nose that was actually shaped a lot like a pig's. So it probably would run around like pigs do, kind of digging up plants from the ground. And they actually grew to a decent size as well. I think Stagonolepis could grow up to about 10, maybe 11 feet long. But there are some other Adosaurs that could grow up to 15 feet long. So they got to a pretty good size, especially for the Triassic.
Probably wouldn't mind running those as much as the other ones, just because. I mean, they probably still run me. I don't know how big they were, but I wasn't worried about them eating me.
Well, these guys probably wouldn't eat. They'd be herbivores. A Sydney Raptor in the chat has a good question. Are all of these cold-blooded, and how is the difference established in paleontology? So that's a good question. We can tell if something is cold-blooded or not by a few different things. First, we can look at the bones, like we can look at the limb bones. If you're warm-blooded and maintaining a relatively constant growth rate and body temperature, you're probably not going to have very well-defined rings in your bones. Like, tree rings. When your growth rate slows, a ring gets deposited. When you're going fast, it doesn't. Now, you can still get those when you're warm-blooded, but they're not going to be as visible, and they're more likely to be obliterated as you grow. The other way that you can usually tell is by the teeth. So the elements that you incorporate into your teeth come in a few different varieties, isotopes. And depending on your body temperature, different proportions of isotopes will get laid down when you build your teeth. So if your body's a lot hotter, you'll have more of one isotope and less of another. If it's colder, you'll have more of that second isotope. And it's actually a very accurate way to tell body temperature. And you can just measure the isotope ratios in the tooth, plot them on a graph, and you get the body temperature. We've done that for dinosaurs. I know. Dinosaurs, I think some crocodilians as well, from at least the Cretaceous. there's a study I could find that measured just a bunch of body temperatures of extinct animals in India, just all across the board. India body temperatures. Let me see if I can find this. Yes. Okay. So this one focused mostly on fossilized eggshells, which, since they're produced in the body, also work for this type of testing. I put the link in my chat, and I'll send it to Vendalia if he wouldn't mind passing that along to his.
Okay, 1 second.
Yes, cortical growth marks. Thank you, Pregnant Crystal. But yeah, using those two different methods, you can usually tell if something is warm-blooded or cold-blooded. As if it's cold-blooded, it's going to hit a lot lower body temperature than if it's warm-blooded. And like, I think, yeah, they got some surprising results from this too. Like, they got a lot of smaller dinosaurs plotting at around the same body temperature as birds, whereas a lot of the bigger ones were a lot lower. It was pretty neat. And they also incorporated data from a different study that showed that Jurassic sauropods apparently seem to have had a much higher body temperature than those found later in the Cretaceous, which might have some implications for their metabolism, which I think is pretty neat. Sorry, that was a whole lot of science. Any questions?
Any questions on this side? Yeah, any questions on this side of the branch of this family tree? Or
I don't see any so far. If anyone does have a question, just at me or Vendalia, and we'll answer as soon as we can. I see Eddie McCoy wants to read that later. Glad to hear it. It's a really neat read. Okay. So forget the salad. What if you just want to get big? Some crocodilomorphs got just huge in the Triassic. So huge that we wouldn't see a large terrestrial predator of their size until the late Jurassic, about 40 to 50 million years later. This right here is Fasola sucus, a large terrestrial crocodilomorph from South America. It could reach up to 30 feet long and weighed a few tons. This thing would have hunted anything it could get those jaws around. It would have hunted mammals, well, not mammal-like reptiles. It would have hunted things like Placarius from a few slides before. So mammal-like creatures the size of a cow.
like at this point, would they be? Were true mammals around yet, or are they still on the silent adopt phase of their life?
True mammals weren't around quite yet. Those appeared in the early Jurassic. This is still late Triassic. But I believe there's some evidence out there that this thing may have hunted some early sauropods. Which is, I mean, I believe it, but that's still kind of crazy.
Well, it's early. I doubt they got the size of Titanosaurus by this point.
No, but there would have been some that could probably reach 30 or 40, maybe 50 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing would have hunted anything it could get its mouth on. At least if it's anything like modern crocodilians.
Is that a saddle?
Yeah, this is art that apparently this artist, Emily Stepp, did for a commission. I thought it was kind of cute, and we have a person here for a sense of scale.
Probably wouldn't recommend riding a Mo.
No, well, if you could tame it, it probably wouldn't be as fast as a horse, but I don't think anything would mess with you if you were riding one.
Hopefully it won't mess with you.
That's why I said if you tamed it.
Oh.
But, maybe getting big isn't what you want. Maybe you just want to swim. So we saw a lot of terrestrial crocodilians today. But there were marine ones as well. And they got kind of weird too. So before I introduce you guys to this one, Sydney Raptor says limb placement form limits size too. Yes, it does. Depending on how you hold your weight is really going to change how much weight you can hold. As an example, I think the largest lepidosaurs get, so like a snake, not snakes, but like just lizards get, is I think Megalania in the Megalania in the late Cenozoic, which is maybe 20, 25 feet long, and that's probably around the limit for a lizard. But their legs are sprawled out to the side, so they really have to push up with their legs to even move at all. Crocodilians hold their legs more under the body, not quite directly under, but closer than lizards do. And so the largest we get with them is stuff like Phaseolasuchus here, which is definitely bigger and probably faster on land too. But if you want to get really gigantic on land, you want your legs to be directly underneath your body, like mammals or like dinosaurs. Once you have that, you can really start packing on the pounds. And the only thing you're really limited by once you have that style of limb placement is just how much weight your bones can take without breaking.
Stupid gravity.
It does get in the way. Not that was a problem for this guy. So this is the Latasuchus, or the sea croc.
Yeah, for some reason, once you go in the water, they're like, size? What's that?
Well, because you don't have to support your weight on your legs. You just have to be able to go up and down and side to side. If you can do that, you can keep growing.
Though I don't think none of the diapsids ever got as big as the mammal whales, I think.
There are some contenders, actually.
Mm.
It was either just this year or late last year. There was a fragmentary ichthyosaur found in England. If the size estimates for that are correct, it may have been the largest known animal ever.
Wow, Dorf the blue whale. Sorry, blue whale, you're no longer the king of the ocean.
Yeah, it may have been bigger than the blue whale, which is just absolutely mind-boggling, especially since this thing was probably still a predator, like an active predator. But funny enough, that was also in the Triassic, but it's not an archosaur. Maybe we can do a little deep dive on aquatic things sometime. Anyway, back to the crocodilian. So Thalatasuchus here is actually from the Jurassic, not the Triassic.
So its ancestors survived the extinction event.
Yes, and they decided to just go into the seas. Now, it may have gone onto land to lay its eggs. Not 100% sure. There's never been a nest that's been attributed to it, but it'd be kind of hard to do that.
Yeah. A lot of, if I remember correctly, a lot of this, well, obviously not mammal ones, but a lot of them, I think, converted, but started going to live birth too when they became ocean dwellers.
A lot of aquatic reptiles did. There seems to be this thing with archosaurs, or at least ornithodyrans, so like pterosaurs and dinosaurs, So when the embryo is growing in the egg, it absorbs nutrients from a yolk sac. But in archosaurs specifically, it seems to absorb calcium from the eggshell. And possibly because of that, there is no known archosaur that can give live birth because of how their babies have to get that calcium into their body.
Hmm.
It's just one of those weird roundabout pathways evolution chooses because it can. So these guys might not have been fully marine just because they couldn't have been. That might be the reason why there are no known fully marine dinosaurs either. And yet we have things like mosasaurs, plesiosaurs, and
Yeah.
ichthyosaurs that are all known for giving live birth.
Yes. Let's see. These guys were on the Archosaur side of the family tree. Mosasaurus were on the Lepidosaur side of the tree, and then I forget what branch off of were Ichthyosaurs and Plesiosaurs. They're different branches.
If I recall, I think they are super early branching archosauromorphs or archosaur forms. Or they might be just a bit before that. I'm not sure how contentious that is.
So they were still diapsids on the diapsid side.
Yes, they were still reptiles,
Yes.
or what we would colloquially call reptiles. But
Yeah.
I don't think they were true archosaurs.
Yeah, off topic. A lot of people, well, kind of on topic too, but off topic. For the longest time, I thought the amnio split was diapsids and synapsids, but diapsids are way up there in different brands up off the thing. They're not right. They're not contenders. I think equal contenders. They're like a little bit up there more than I thought they were.
Well, I mean, there are still amniotes, but
Well, I mean, yeah, but I think it was synapses and I forget what it starts with an S.
sauropsids.
Sauropsids. And diapsids are like a subset of that, even.
Yes.
So like, yeah, it's just
As
food for thought. Right.
They're also, I think the group's still valid. There are anapsids, which I think are derived diapsids, but I could be wrong on that.
So speaking of diapsids, did these guys still have the two holes in their head, or?
Yes. With with most archosaurs, there's a hole on the side and then a hole on the top of the head. But that can change around as their head shape changes.
Yeah, since our hole is kind of filled up at the point where we're still synapsids.
Yes, humans and other, a lot of other mammals actually, have secondarily lost the hole. It's been filled in.
But that's a
Anywho.
topic for another. That's a topic for another time.
Yes. For today, we are moving on to our second branch of the archosaurs. We are talking about the pterosaurs.
Closer to dinosaurs, but sadly, no living people, not living people, no living specimens remain.
No living representatives. Yeah, sadly, pterosaurs are pretty dang cool. They're very lightly built, and all known pterosaurs, like pterosaurs, have wings. We have some archosauromorphs that may be their ancestors earlier in the Triassic, but they don't have wings yet. So we just have these kind of basal reptiles running around, and then suddenly wings.
And I might be wrong, but these were the first flying deuterostromes.
First flying vertebrates. Yes. Well, yeah, deuterostomes, but I would just say vertebrates, but yes. The first things that weren't bugs that could fly. At least could undergo powered flight.
Yep. But
Now, the thing is, they are super well adapted to flying. And with that comes an absurdly light skeleton. I've heard people talk about like going to pick up a pteranodon skull. And keep in mind, this skull is like 2, maybe 3 feet long, but it feels like it weighs nothing. It feels like it's made out of paper. And that's what all of them were like. They were just the opposite of dense. They were born to fly. And while that means they were great flyers, it also means it's kind of hard for them to be preserved, at least well. As far as I know, most of the pterosaur fossil record consists of the ends of long bones and random scraps of vertebrae, because everything else was just made of paper mache. So you have to have really exceptional circumstances to preserve them well. At least until you get to the really big ones. And as we mentioned kind of earlier, they had feathers. A lot of older texts will refer to them as pycnofibers, but they're feathers. They're just feathers. There's no real differentiation you can make. Thanks to some exceptionally well-preserved specimens, we know what their internal structure was like. We know what they were made of the same kind of keratin dinosaur feathers are. They have the same structure. They're just feathers.
Yeah, I might be wrong, but their arm to wing transformation was different than the dinosaur bird transformation arm to wings, right?
Yes. I actually don't think I have a slide about that, but that would be good to bring up. Pterosaurs built their wings in a way that nothing else ever has. Just nothing since. See if I can find. There's a good picture. I'm gonna share something here.
All right.
Okay, so this is a generalized pterosaur wing. And if you know anything about anatomy, you're going to notice that a few things are really freaking weird. For starters, the humerus, the upper arm bone, is super short. Then the lower arm bones are long. The fingers curl forward off the wing. They're basically their thumb points back towards the humerus. And then the fourth finger is 3 to 4 times the length of the rest of the arm. And it's just pointing out. And now keep in mind, all of these bones are basically made out of paper, and yet somehow they're strong enough to support this animal's weight. And they're helped by these lines you can see running through the wing. Now, those lines are long strands of connective tissue that help hold up the end of the wing. And they're attached in such a way that if the pterosaur pulls its fourth finger back, the wing just whoop, swoops back in. It folds like an umbrella. But, well, like a perfected umbrella, I should say. Like they basically close themselves. And that system also gives them just, how do I put this? They would have had more information to process while flying than any bird could ever hope to dream.
Or bat.
Or, well, I think, yeah, actually, or bats. But Like, it's such an incredible system that they had. And apparently it was just super effective. Let me see if I can find a diagram of how they folded their wings. But and like the thing is, we used to think they'd be super awkward on the ground too. But just because of how their bodies were built, some of these guys could gallop like a giraffe. And we won't be seeing any that are giraffe-sized in this video, but we will eventually. They really are just absolutely bonkers creatures. They really are. Like, it's a wonder that the first ones even got off the ground. Right. With that said, we're all the way back here. I think we were. Yep. Anywho, let's get into our first pterosaur. I'm sure they start off completely normal. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is a page you put in here. Again, we're not going through the exact phylogeny. Pterosaur phylogeny is complicated, especially since multiple features evolve and disappear several times. But we're going to be going through some of the more interesting earlier representatives.
Yeah, Professor, I think a lot of people get confused. They think pterodactyls and pterosaurs are the same thing.
I mean, pterodactyls are a type of pterosaur.
True.
But we won't be seeing a pterodactyloid until the very end of the presentation. For now, how did pterosaurs start? Well, like I said, the earliest full-on pterosaurs we have are already flying. We don't have the intermediate, at least not yet. But we do have an interesting group of tiny archosaurs in the early Triassic. They're called Lagurpetids. And one of the most well-known is called Scleromochlus. It is a tiny archosaur. I think it's maybe 10 or 20 centimeters long at most.
Oh, real
And it
fast.
moved.
Sorry, interrupt you, but
Yeah, it would have been really fast. It would have moved by hopping.
I have a pterosaur toy.
Is that a Dinobot?
Power Ranger, yeah.
Close enough. At any rate, this little guy hopped around a lot like, I forget what exactly they're called. But they're a kind of rodent that lives in the desert. And they just hop all over. It probably would have lived a lot like that, hunting like small insects or smaller vertebrates. And even though it doesn't have wings, you can see how its lifestyle would encourage better, longer hops. Like, if you can extend that hop, you expend less energy, you move farther, you move faster. So there's this really intense pressure to hop farther and faster. And if you have a little like skin membrane between your arms and your legs, well, hey, that's going to help pick you up and make you go a little further. And yes, Rana, kind of like a gerbil. Or what is it? There's a meme with the rodent I'm thinking of that has them doing like the drill instructor from Full Metal Jacket screams. Is it? I'll try to figure it out. But are they just called the Howling Mouse? I don't know. They're in a documentary, and I remember a meme that was made out of them. That was kind of funny. evolution of intermediate limbs to wings is kind of hard to imagine. I mean, kind of, but I'd say not really also. Like, even if you just think in mammals, you have animals that leap from tree to tree, like a squirrel. When squirrels jump, they spread their legs, they spread out their tail, and they kind of half jump, half glide to the nearest branch.
Like Kalugos?
Well, if you were going to think of something that might be a bit better at that, you might think of a colugo or a sugar glider, something like that, which, like I said, has kind of skin between its arms and legs, and when it stretches its legs, it stretches the skin and it glides farther. Well, what's the next step beyond that? Being able to flap your arms and or legs and jump a bit farther. Well, now you're getting into kind of a bat kind of thing. So it's the kind of progression that requires consistent pressure from the environment, but it's also something that would feel like it would happen really rapidly in evolution, so you wouldn't have much of a chance to capture the intermediates in fossils.
Yeah, I might be wrong.
Why. Oh, go ahead.
So I might be wrong, but I think unlike the insect ones, all the vertebrate ones had to lose. I'll say lose, but transfer their forearms into the wings they use, or the insects had something different for wing power.
Also, Rana hit the nail on the head, like a jerboa, exactly like a jerboa. In fact, they kind of look like a jerboa. Now that I'm looking at it.
What's a jerboa?
You don't know what a jerboa is? Okay, I have to show you. Sharing the screen. This is a jerboa. They are these little hopping rodents that hop around the desert. And they are so cute. I love them. They're so adorable. They just go hop, hop, hop. But yeah, it would have lived basically just like that. Probably. Or at least most likely. It's probably one of the better modern analogs. But yeah, that's the start. This Scleromochlus. And then we jump. And we get into pterosaurs. Because again, we don't really have that intermediate, at least not yet. So this is one of the earliest pterosaurs, and it's called Ostreodactylus. And it's already getting kind of weird. It's not satisfied with just being able to fly. It's one of the first pterosaurs known to have a head crest, which is something that appears and disappears over and over and over again throughout the entire lineage. It seems that whatever they were doing with their skulls just made them super prone to growing and shrinking a billboard on their face. And, like all other archosaurs, they started kind of small, these little pterosaurs.
I wonder if that. I wonder if that head crest thing was a sexual selection thing or something different.
Most likely. Though, at least in some lineages, it's possible that they used it to help them fly, like as a rudder, or the opposite of a tail fan on a plane, like a head fan, to help turn and stuff. It's contentious, and it depends on which pterosaur you're talking about, but I definitely believe it for at least some of them. Some basically just had fans on their heads. The interesting thing about pterosaurs is even though they do eventually get huge, like all other archosaurs, they always stay light. As far as we know, every pterosaur, until they went extinct, could fly. Even the ones that were the size of a giraffe only weighed about 500 pounds. Which, keep in mind, we're talking about an animal that is 15 to 20 feet tall and can gallop. That is terrifying. But
So
before we get to that in the Cretaceous,
we're pterosaur. I'm forgetting this presentation, like you did, like the crocodiles. Are pterosaurs all carnivores, or are there any herbivores? Pterosaurs.
they appear to have been all carnivores, but I would not be surprised at all if some started eating like seeds or berries. The thing is, most pterosaurs had bills, and bills are hard to match to a single diet. Just because they can be used for a multitude of things. Heck, a lot of these guys could have been omnivores. But before we get to the giant pterosaurs, one really interesting thing about pterosaurs is as soon as they appear, they just go nuts. They diversify like crazy. And probably the biggest reason for that is they have no competition. There is nothing else that can fly that's big enough to challenge them other than other pterosaurs. So you get these weird head crests, you get long tails, you get short tails, you get long arms, tiny arms.
Yeah, the birds are going to be around for till the next expansion. Birds are going to be around until the next period, and even
Yep.
then they're
And even then, they're small.
And then
like
the ones before that, the insects are their heyday was in the Carboniferous, and their days are over with now.
Yep, all of the bugs are small. Birds haven't evolved yet, and even when birds do evolve, they tend to stay fairly small, at least until about the end of the Cretaceous. You start to see some larger birds by then, but not many.
But after that, their competition is over, is gone, and they dominate the sky.
And then the birds take over. Yep, exactly. When an extinction happens, it opens up a whole lot of niches, and animals diversify quick.
Do you know if early bats were before the KG split, KG extinction, or are they after?
I'm gonna say before, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, in that case, then that would
If not
mean,
before, then it's very close.
if they were before, that would mean there's at least four different flying things at the same time.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Of course, obviously the pterosaurs had the high sky, had the high ground, quote high ground.
At least at first. Yeah. Speaking of flying, again, the pterosaurs get weird fast. The panel selection won't go away, but whatever. There it goes. Um, all kinds of pterosaurs appeared before the end of the Triassic, including one of the most famous ones, Dimorphodon. Now, even among a lot of other early pterosaurs, Dimorphodon had a huge head. Like, its head was about the size of its body. And the odd thing about it is that it had two different types of teeth. Now, mammals can have 3 or 4 different kinds of teeth, but it's rare for reptiles to have multiple teeth. And the thing about having multiple types of teeth is that it lets you have a more varied diet because you can process more types of food. So Dimorphodon probably would have been one of the more adaptable early pterosaurs. being able to eat a lot of different things. And it's not alone. There's another group that got a little extra weird. So this is Gehelopterus. It's a member of a group of pterosaurs called Agneronathans. That means frog mouths, because they have a mouth like a frog. I know, it's... How did they come up with that name? And the interesting thing is, they probably would have lived like bats, because they had huge eyes. Their wings were built more for mobility than they were for flying long distances. And they might have had feelers to help track the changes in wind pressures. Gehelopterus in particular is preserved with multiple types of feathers all over its body. I think there are 7 types in total. Like 7 completely different structures of feathers. And they are beautifully preserved. But this is the thing with pterosaurs. You either get scraps of nothing, that's just a hollow tube, like of bone, or you get an absolutely perfectly preserved complete animal. There is no in between with pterosaurs. And this little guy is kind of special to me because it was included in probably my favorite DLC pack for the game Jurassic World Evolution 2.
Ooh.
It was part of the Feathered Species pack, and it absolutely belonged there. Because Gehelopterus definitely had feathers, and it is, I'm going to say it again, it is the most adorable little thing I have ever seen. And I really wish I could have one as a pet. Like, they're super fluffy and adorable, and I love them. I wish they were still alive. I wish.
Of course, I doubt they'd be the same as they were now as they were then, because nothing stays the same unless, at least not this. I mean, a little bit the same, but not totally the same in 65 million years plus.
Like 160 million years, but yeah. Also, I'm sharing another thing. Let's see. Sydney Raptor is asking, have I read those books? I have not. I don't know what those are, unfortunately. But yeah, just look at that little face. He's so happy.
Are those carnivore
I
teeth?
love him. What's that?
Are those carnivore teeth?
Yes. Gehelopterus was probably a very avid insectivore.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, they probably would have filled the same niche as bats do today. And they were really well built for it. You always wanted to work in paleontology, Eddie. Yeah, that's fair. I had to travel a good 12 hours to get my start in my field, and I'm just starting. It's never too late to be an amateur paleontologist, though. Even amateurs have contributed massively to the field. Most of your favorite dinosaurs were probably discovered by people who just thought bones were kind of neat. Actually, probably most of them. But anyway, that is the adorableness. And to cap it off, we have the first member of the group of pterosaurs known as pterodactyloids. Now, pterodactyloids are a specialized group of pterosaurs. They almost all have very short tails, massive heads, and many of them also have some style of head crest.
Yeah.
And well, it seems they ditched the long tail that a lot of earlier pterosaurs had in favor of a more streamlined body.
And I think they ditched the two back leg skin membrane too that were connected before.
No, like they still had those.
Okay.
But they ditched the tail. And at least I don't know 100% the math on this, but my bet is the head got bigger to use that more as a rudder. But I could be completely.
Again,
and what's on?
Again, you're not an expert on this side of the family tree.
I'm not. This is a guess on my part. But what's on screen is called Cryptodracon Progenitor, the ancestral hidden dragon, which I think is a fabulous name for one of the earliest members of a group of pterosaurs. Sometimes paleontologists get the names perfect. Not always, but sometimes they do. And that
This is the size of it compared to a house cat today.
Yep.
So not the ones in the bigger, not the bigger size ones.
Nope. Although this is about the largest that most pterosaurs got before the end of the Jurassic. They didn't start to get big until the Cretaceous. But once they start getting big, they got big. But that's a story for another time. For now, does anyone in the chat, or you, Vandalia, anyone have any questions? And yes, like Pragmatic says, like, share, subscribe, por favor. It genuinely helps us out.
Yep. If you're not subscribed to Doc Dino, do that. Or vice versa, if you're watching on Doc Dino's channel and not subscribed to me yet.
Exactly.
Right.
Let's see, I'm not seeing any last minute questions come in. You have any plans for the near future?
Yes. I have stuff planned out. Coming up soon, I'll be interviewing. I forget what it is, but I think it's the daughter of the guy who played Frankenstein or Dracula in the old Universal movies. I'll be interviewing her.
Cool. I am happy to say on my end that the first part of my documentary is almost done and will be releasing soon. So I hope people are at least somewhat excited to see that. I've been working on it for too long. That is such as life. Sorry, I'm yawning. I've had a busy couple days.
All right, so now that we're waiting for any more questions, anybody has any? Now that we've finished with the major clades of the dinosaurs, so which minor clade would you or subclade would you or your audience like to do next?
That's a good question. We could probably put up a poll about that. As our next slice of time, it'll be the late Jurassic, right?
Yeah, let's see. Like, do you want next clade? You want? Okay, we'll talk. We're gonna poll, obviously, but in chat right now, would you like to see a deep dive one that clades the theropods, the sauropodomorphs, or the one I can't pronounce.
Ornithischians.
Yes.
Well, now that I think about it, we could hypothetically do late Jurassic and couple it with the early Cretaceous, and then leave the middle and late Cretaceous.
Okay. Like I said, if you like I said, if you guys have any preferences, check it out. Tell us in the comments of our videos, or if you decide to make a poll, we'll tell you. Which, all right. How do you feel about the second week of September? Second week, how are you feeling the second Saturday of September?
It should be good to go.
Because the first Saturday of September, I will be on vacation for the first time in 2 years. So probably won't be able to host a show by then.
Well, shall we draw this to a close?
Right. Last chance for questions, live questions. Otherwise, leave in the comments.
Yes, you can always leave comments. In fact, we encourage it if you have anything to add to the comments.
All right. Nothing? All right.
I think we are probably done.
Wait, we have a question. Last minute question.
Most of the Jurassic Park dinos were from the Cretaceous.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, right. You want to say your closing catchphrase?
I mean, I don't really have one other than have a good day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
You should get one. They're fun.
Well, how about you? Give me an example.
All right. As I always say, never stop learning and enjoy the randomness. We'll see you all next time.